Hello, I'd like to share my experience with buying homes and hope to help some first time home buyers with some of the stuff that I wish I had known when I first bought my house. I bought my first house in 2015. It was a small bungalow, 3 bedrooms, one bathroom, fairly small house, about 1,300 square feet, a great starter home. Since I bought my first house, I've bought and sold about 6 different houses. And since then, I've also probably looked at hundreds of houses, if not more. And I really enjoy looking at houses for whatever reason. I thought it's really cool to look at what they're doing with the houses, how the designs work, how people have renovated, how people have done the interior design, all of that stuff. I really like all of that. And since 2015, my life has changed quite a bit. So I have different requirements starting from the beginning. The first one, when I bought my first house, I thought, oh, just buying a starter home, right? Something that I can live in, maybe a girlfriend. But I was really young. I was 25 back then, so I didn't have other requirements. And then I had a girlfriend. We got married. Then we were looking for a home for both my wife and I. And then we have a child. Then I'm looking for a house for the child and my wife and I. So three of us. And then I'm looking for houses with in-laws where the in-laws can move in with us if they want to. Right. So all of these changing life circumstances. And I really wanted to share what I've learned. I've shared with friends and it's been helpful. So I hope to help more people if I can. And I hope it really helps you. Now, even before we start looking at houses, there are things we want to consider. Now, each of these topics will probably be their own video, but it's something that we want to take a look at before we go a little bit further. Is of course the budget, right? And not only do you want to factor in the cost of the house itself or the mortgage or anything like that, you want to make sure you think about, oh, I maybe want to pay for inspection, especially if it's your first time buying a house. There may be outstanding fees and taxes that you need to pay first before the seller can reimburse you. And there's other costs for setting up accounts for your utilities, right? So in Toronto, you're probably looking at $20, $25, $30 for your gas, $20, $30 for your hydro, electricity, things like that. Small cost, but always good to factor those in so you're not surprised. And make sure you get home insurance. It could be costly. It could be anywhere between like $1,000 to $2,000 or $3,000 depending on the area. And there's other closing costs you need to take into account. Things like lawyer fees. It could get expensive depending on the house you're buying, right? It could be anywhere between, say, $1,000 to $2,000. And title insurance, this is absolutely needed because if anything happens to your house, let's say there's a lien on it or there's unpaid taxes or other legal issues, title insurance covers you for that. So you absolutely need this. It's going to cost, I think it's a few dollars per $1,000 so of a house. So if you're buying a $500,000 house, you're probably looking at about $2,500 ish, something like that. Your lawyers will let you know. Land transfer tax. This is maybe it's costly, especially in Toronto, because in Ontario you do pay land transfer tax at a certain rate. It's like 2.5% or something like that, and goes up. But in Toronto, you're paying double that. If it's your first home, however, you may get a discount on this. I think you have a discount on a portion of it or some of it or up to a certain amount. I can't remember. It's been a while. But there is a discount and your lawyers will let you know. And potentially other legal fees, like you may want to perform a prenup with your wife or your girlfriend or whoever. You want to make sure, oh, they're putting in a certain amount of money, you're putting in a certain amount of money. You want to make sure that's clear if something were to happen. Not saying something will happen, but if something were to happen. Or promissory notes. So these are things, let's say, for example, your parents lend you some money and they would like to have that investment protected. You may have to do a promissory note and saying, hey, I owe my parents or whoever this amount of money and they need to get paid before I get paid. So those things will all cost you a couple $100. The prenup may be a little bit more. You want to factor those costs in if you were to do them. Now, make a list of all of your requirements in priority, as in you want to list off all the important things to you. You want to list them out in order of importance. So you want to put the most important thing up at the top. Let's say, for example, location. Right? You want to maybe if you have a child, you may want to be close proximity to schools, or maybe you want to be really close to work, or you really like to have a lot of space. These are all different requirements that only you can know. So for you, it would be really helpful to list all of this stuff out. Like for me, for example, when I was looking at my houses, I had all the requirements listed out. So when I was buying my own house, I was thinking, you know what, it needs to be within my budget, but it also needs to have room to grow. As in, I would like to have a slightly larger plot if possible, right? Something old doesn't really matter to me because I know I can fix some of the stuff. So these are all things that you need to figure out. What is your life situation? What is important to you? And also, if you have a spouse, someone you're buying a house with, you want to talk to them about it. Make sure you're staying on the same page. Like when my wife and I, we were looking for houses, we made sure we talked to each other, be like, hey, here are the things that are important to me. Here are the things important to her, right? We need to figure out, okay, what is something that's important to both of us? And we put those things at the top. And then our own individual needs come in a little bit later. And also, you don't really need an agent, but you do absolutely 100% need a lawyer. So you can't buy a house without an agent because usually the seller's agent will be more than happy to help you, but there's problems there because of conflicts of interest and all that good stuff, So that's something you do want to watch out for. And if it's your first time buying, having an agent is not the worst idea in the world. So they can help you navigate some of the stuff. They can help you prepare offers. It's good to have an agent, but you don't need one. And plus, you're not the one paying the agent fee if you're buying. So, probably it doesn't make a huge difference for you. And lawyers, make sure you get a good lawyer. Do your homework with a lawyer because lawyers are so important. I've dealt with good lawyers. I've dealt with bad lawyers. And you don't want to be dealing with bad lawyers. And it's a pain in the ass to deal with a bad lawyer. They don't get in touch with you. They miss documents. They mislabel documents. They may do mistakes on the documents. And these are places where you don't want mistakes to happen. Even though there may be recourses for you, but you don't want to miss out on the home that you really want. Right? So do your research. Get a good lawyer. Don't look for the cheapest lawyer out there. Look for a lawyer who has good reputation, good track record, good reviews. Make sure you get a good lawyer. And do not skimp on title insurance. It is absolutely important. And if you get a good lawyer, they will tell you the same. Now let's get started looking for houses. Where do we look for houses? That's the most important thing, right? Personally, I like to use House Sigma over Realtor.ca. You can use Realtor.ca as well. But House Sigma do need to register for a free account. So then you can look at more information than Realtor.ca can offer. Things like historic prices, things like analysis for different prices, analysis for rents and things like that. Although it may not be accurate, but it's a good reference to start to looking at stuff, especially if you're new to the game. If you have an agent, why should you be looking for stuff yourself? If you have an agent, you have a good agent, they will prepare a lot of things for you. You tell them, hey, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, a bungalow in this area, and they will do their best to look for stuff for you. However, the reason why you should be looking for stuff yourself is because only you know what you want the best. Only you know what you want. Only you know, right, what you like, what you don't like. There may be houses that the agents say, oh, you know what, it doesn't really match your criteria. But when you look at it, you say, this house has some of the stuff that I am willing to overlook some other stuff for. So, things like that, the trade-offs and stuff like that. Only you know what you're willing to, what trade-offs you're willing to make. And it also helps you learn the market. As in, when you're looking at stuff, you got a feel for the market that you won't get when the agent prepares stuff for you. Like I said, there may be a house that doesn't match your criteria. Let's say only has 2 bedrooms, but has a fantastic ravine lot. Or maybe it's on top of a hill that overlooks a lot of the other houses and it's really nice. And you're thinking, hey, you know what? I'm willing to put up with a house that's smaller than I expected, but has a great view. These are things that your agent would not be able to know, right? So these are the only things that only you can know. So that's why you want to be looking for yourself. And there may be unexpected finds that are really interesting. There was a house that I found behind all of the other houses within a ravine or green belt or kind of thing, right? And this house, my agent would not have found this. It was too old, it wasn't great, but it was a very interesting property. I went to look at it. It's fantastic. It's really cool. But again, it was old. It didn't really match some of the other criteria. But it's always nice to see interesting properties. But also understand that no house is perfect. Even multi-million-dollar houses, they're not going to be perfect. Just like you and I, none of us are perfect. And the other thing is figure out a location. I don't mean figure out where you want to buy the house, right? What I mean is whatever you're looking, whatever the house you're interested in, look what's around it. Are there malls around it? Are there hydro lines around it? There's trains, schools. Is it under a flight path? Right? So I bought a house that was on the flight path for the helicopters, like the rescue helicopters. And they're really, really loud. They're surprisingly loud. So that's something you want to watch out for. So you can go to the link right here that shows you what airplanes are flying over what area. So you may want to take a look at that just because, again, airplanes, especially when they're landing or taking off, are quite loud. It may not be make or break, but it's something you want to watch out for. And noises, things like malls, schools, they get noisy, or trains. There's a lot of vibration that come through from the trains. So these are things you want to pay attention to. Again, not necessarily make or break, but something you want to be aware of. So you're not surprised when you move in and say, oh, I didn't realize there was a train coming through every 2 hours. Or, oh, I didn't know there was an airplane landing every 25 minutes, right? So these are things you want to watch out for. And learn to read a map. It will be really helpful. Ideally, what you want is to have the house back where the living room and kitchen area are. You want that area to be facing south. This way, when you open up the door, it's always bright inside. Right? So that's the best scenario. Or you can have the entrance door facing south as well. So you want to figure out which direction does the house face. And then you can also drive around the neighborhood. Then these are for things a little bit more serious. When you really want to consider purchasing the house, you may want to take some time, drive around the neighborhood, look at what's around the house, look at the people walking around, look at things that are around it, hang around for a bit, see if you like the area. There may be intangible things that you get to feel when you're in the area. You can look at schools. Schools are surprisingly loud during the day when the kids are around out to play. It's really loud. And malls, they get really loud as well, surprisingly so, even during the evening. So my first house backs into a commercial area, right? It's kind of like a mall, but it's got commercial buildings on it with large parking lots. And what happens is at night, there are folks that come around, do donuts in the parking lot, and that was pretty loud, surprisingly loud. And also the headlights come into your bedroom. It could be bothersome for some people. And it was just something I didn't think about, but now you want to pay attention to it. We want to look at the price history, obviously. But just because the previous seller, right, they pay 1.5 million for the house, doesn't mean you have to pay more than that. It doesn't mean that. Houses are only worth what you're willing to pay or what people are willing to pay for it. So what we're seeing now, the market right now in February of 2024, is that the trend, it seems to me, I'm not an agent, but it seems to me like most of the houses are going for under the listing price, which is good. But the price history gave you a little bit of a glimpse into what the seller kind of expects. Let's say they paid 1.5 million for the house. You can probably expect they want to sell for more than that, or they hope to sell for more than that. Doesn't mean they will, but that's what they're hoping. It gives you a sense of what the seller expects, but just because they paid certain amount of money doesn't mean you should too. If you, for example, really, really absolutely want the house, maybe there's a good starting point to say pay for what they paid for the house. So on House Sigma, you can filter specifically for sold houses within the last 30 days or 60 days. So looking at those will help you learn how much are the houses worth. So houses are only worth what people are willing to pay for it. So when you look at the market, you look at recent solds, and again, your agent will prepare all of this stuff for you. They will kind of tell you, hey, here are similar properties around the area. Here are what they're sold for. And you can then say, oh, maybe this property, they're asking 1.5 million, but similar property in the areas only sold for 1.25. Then you can say, oh, you know what? Maybe it will be more reasonable to expect that kind of price. Now, of course, everybody else is doing the same, right? So when you make an offer, you can go in and say, oh, 1.25, and then it may go up and down from there. Most likely up there, hardly go down. And of course, when you're looking at property that are way below the average or way below the norm, you got to think, okay, why is this one selling for so much less? There may be damage to the foundation. There may be damage to the roof. Maybe the seller's in a hurry to get rid of the house. Maybe they need money. So there's a bunch of reasons why something sold for less or much less than what's the norm. That doesn't mean whatever property you're looking to buy will sell for that. Looking at all of the sold properties, it kind of helps you to learn the areas, like how much the houses are actually worth. The other thing I would recommend, maybe just personal thing, look at properties or houses that are way more expensive than you can afford. Okay, look at houses outside of your price range. Look at houses that kind of fulfills your every need. Again, within reason, right? Probably shouldn't be looking at $10-20 million houses. It's just too unrealistic. But if you can afford those, I don't know why you're here. But use the houses as a benchmark, right? So you want to look at something, let's say maybe your price range is at 1.5 million. Look at houses that are maybe $2.5 million. Do they have all the things you need? Do they have everything you want? Is that your dream house? Is that how much it's going to cost to get your dream house? Let's say you find your quote unquote dream house for $2 million. Then you say, okay, that's where my benchmark is. And you can compare every house you look at that are around your budget to that dream house and say, how close is this house getting to my dream house? How close is it getting? Then that tells you how much value you're getting out of your the house you potentially could purchase, right? So the closer you get with your budget, the better. Then you're getting more value, at least to you, right, for what you're paying. A lot of times what I find is people expect more for their money than what's realistic. So looking at houses that are quote unquote your dream house gives you an idea of how much you need to pay to get what you want. So then you can say, okay, what is something that I can live without? What are something that I absolutely need? And then it kind of rearranges your priorities, and it also gives you an idea of what you expect to pay if you really want everything on your list. I think some people kind of have an idea of like, oh yeah, this house should be this much, this house should be that much, but the market dictates how much things are, right? So it's not just what we think. And also, looking at expensive houses gives you an idea of what is possible. So when houses are old, they don't tend to sell for as much, but I think looking at houses that are perfect, quote unquote perfect, gives you an idea of what you can do in terms of renovation. So, oh, here maybe I can put in new hardwood floor, and that will increase value. Then that will make the house look more expensive, right? And then if you're a little bit handy, you can always look for fixer-uppers that are houses that needs a little bit of work. But if you can see past it, right? Or if you've seen some of the houses, right? You look at the houses that have been renovated and say, oh, here are the things I can do. Maybe I can put in all of these stuff. I can put in new hardwood floors, for example, new appliances, or get a new coat of paint on the walls. Then it will look much more expensive. And also, when you're looking at new houses, especially newer builds, look at permit statuses. It's very important to pay attention, make sure all of the permits are closed, all of the permits are in place, all of the occupancy statuses has been checked, all of the inspections has been passed, especially, again, for newer homes. When we're looking at the listings, look at key facts, read it. Read the basement status. Is it finished? Is it unfinished? Is it partially finished? Look at the lot sizes. How big are the lots? How wide are the lots? Is it 50 foot? Is it 40 foot? Is it 20 foot? How big is it? How deep is it? 100 foot deep? Is it 60 foot deep? Is it 125 foot deep? So the lot sets give you an idea of how much work you could probably have in terms of cutting grass or pruning the trees and things like that. But also gives you an idea of the space to grow for your house. Generally, larger lot sizes are preferred, but again, depending on the area, large lot sizes may not be realistic. Days on market, this is pretty important because you want to look at how many days has the house been on the market, how long have they been trying to sell it. The longer they've tried to sell it, the better chance for you to get a lower prices, right? Because it's been on a market for, say, 3 days, then it's just listed. They're not going to change their prices. They want to sell for a good price. But if it's been listed for 30 days or more, then there's a little bit more wiggle room because it's been on there for a while. They may want to move the property. And the property type, what kind of property are we talking about? Is it a detached house? Is it a townhouse? Is it a condo townhouse? Is it a condo? Is it a farmland and things like that? You want to watch for that. And also taxes, like how much do you have to pay for the property tax? Or how much did they have to pay for property tax? If it's rebuilt, whatever they've listed, not going to be realistic because they're going to reevaluate and your taxes going to shoot up like crazy. But if it's a fairly old house or a fairly established house, you can probably expect whatever they've listed, maybe a little bit higher, like 2 to 5% more. And you want to look for anything else that's listed there. You want to read through all of the things. You want to make sure you understand what they've included in the house. After reading the key facts, read the descriptions. Every single word that's written there, read it carefully, read it over and over again. Make sure you understand what's included and what's not, right? Things like appliances, things like water heaters, things like detached garages, things like child's playpens and things like that. You want to watch for are those included? What is included, what is not? And also the square footage, you want to read that thing because I've seen more and more descriptions includes basement square footage in the description. I was like, what the hell? You can't do that. You shouldn't be doing that. And there's like houses that have, it's 5,000 square foot of living space. Oh, living space. They say, total living space. That means they probably included the basement. It's really more like 3,000 square foot, but they've put in the 2,000 from the basement. And also things like as is. Like let's say for example, fridge as is. What does that mean? That means the fridge is probably broken. They're selling it as is. So you need to pay attention. Like elves. What are elves? So I think it means electrical light fixtures, I believe. So like the lights and stuff. So are all the lights included? Because sometimes they have a really nice chandelier when you go see the house. They may be taking that with them. So be careful with all of that stuff. Or rentals. Maybe there are hot water heaters that are rentals, right? From, Reliance or whatever. You need to pay monthly for that. Or maybe there are air conditioning units that are rentals, right? Things like that. So pay attention to that. Be aware of it. And always remember, whenever you're reading the descriptions, they are trying to sell you things. They're going to make things look more rosier than it actually is, right? Always take it with a grain of salt. Things like, they will put in descriptors. Things like luxurious, high-end, spa-like, or an architectural masterpiece. Like not every single house out there is an architectural masterpiece. The agents really love to use these descriptive words that sets your mind in a certain way. And it's, look at this luxurious, newly renovated masterpiece building with spa-like bathrooms. And then you look at the bathroom, it's just a normal bathroom, but they put in spa-like. They may put in a little bit of staging. We'll talk about that in a bit. And also, just get past those words. Don't worry about them too much. It pays to be handy. So what I mean is that it's nice when you think about owning a home. When you start to think about owning a home, there's a lot of work that come with owning a home, whether it be a condo or a house. House has a lot more stuff that you need to do. So owning a house is not a spectator sport. You need to participate in it. You need to be actively fixing stuff. You need to actively improving on it. So it's a constant battle, right? You need to make sure you trim the weeds, you fix broken things, you fix the leak here and there, So it's not a spectator sport. And doing a lot of the work yourself can save a lot of money. Like if you can troubleshoot some simple stuff, let's say a leaky faucet, if you can replace that faucet yourself, you just save hundreds of dollars. Whenever you're doing work yourself, it gives you the chance to know your house better. Doing stuff yourself, when you look at something that's broken, let's say a leaky faucet, you fix that right away. It helps protect your investment in the long run. Being a little bit handy kind of helps you identify small versus big issues when you're looking at houses. When you go visit, say, for example, in an open house, you can see, okay, I can see a leaky faucet. That's a small problem. I can fix that, no problem. But maybe somebody else who doesn't know what to expect, look at the leaky house and say, that house is broken, right? They may just turn around and walk away. But it's a small issue. I can pay, say, $75, $100 for a faucet. I can replace that, no problem. So it gives you a leg up over the competition. Being able to do a little bit of handiwork yourself helps you to see what's possible with minor renovations. Things like a hole in the wall, for example. It may be a big problem for some, but for you who are a little bit handy, say, oh, you know what? No problem. I can patch that up. I can fix that up. Easy. So that gives you an advantage over people who are not as handy. And of course, you own a house, you own a condo, you own a whatever, townhouse. There will always be something that needs fixing. And speaking of something needs fixing, currently my hot water heater is broken, so that needs to get fixed, right? So there's always something that needs to be fixing in a house. All right, so now when we'll talk about pictures. So real estate pictures are made to make houses look as good as possible, right? They're trying to sell you things. And I've taken real estate pictures myself. So you can see here at the corner, you can see on the left-hand side, it's before picture, right? This is what it actually looks like on the right-hand side after some tweaking, some adjustments, right? So we want to make it look a little bit nicer, want to make it look as inviting as possible. And of course, the devil's in the details. You want to look at things like the door hinges. You want to look at the corners areas where they're not going to be paying as much attention to. And you want to look at where the baseboards meets the hardwood floor. Are there gaps? Are the gaps consistent? Is there like wavy lines around here? And any damages you can spot, you can see here in the lower picture here, you can see some damage on the shingles, right? So these are things you want to look at when you look at pictures. And there's some damage here on the bottom right there. You can see where the exterior wall meets the floor, meets the ground, right? So there's a little bit of water splashing back. There's some mold growth. Again, there may be minor issues, but you want to be aware of it. Or masonry damages, especially when you look at pictures in the basement. Look at the masonry in the basement. Are there water penetrations? Are there water leaks? Are there water marks on it? Right. So these are all the things that you want to pay attention to. And the other thing is, nowadays a lot of houses do staging. Try to look past the staging as much as possible by imagining your own furnitures in the house instead of looking at these perfectly staged, very manicured furniture pieces. Imagine your own pieces in its stead. When you look at properties, you look at large wall arts, large furnitures, large like cabinets and things like that. What are they trying to hide behind it? Is there a hole behind it? Is there an electrical panel behind it? Is there something else going on that shouldn't be there? Right? These are things you want to think about when you're looking at houses. There may be a reason why there's a gigantic piece of art on the wall where it shouldn't really be. Look behind it if you can, right? When you go visit a house, look behind it. And again, it helps to be handy, right? You can see, oh, there's a crack on the wall. Is it something to do with a normal wear and tear, right? Is it something to do with the house kind of falling apart, right? So being able to identify these kind of things really, really helps. So know what's normal wear and tear and what is not normal wear and tear. And take advantage of virtual house tours. I think it's really nice to have these virtual tours, and there's been more and more listings with virtual tours. So of course it saves you time. It gives you an idea of how the house flows more than the pictures could. So you can virtually walk through the house, give you this idea, oh, here's how you walk through, here's the hallway. Oh, is the hallway really, really narrow? Like, does it give you claustrophobia when you walk through it? Like, these virtual tours really help with that. And it saves you time so you don't have to go look at every single house you see. And floor plans. So a lot of times when a house makes these virtual tours and it kind of automatically generates floor plans for you and it gives you a rough square footage. But what happens is these square footages are always on the exterior side. So usually the square footage is larger than what you expect. So they may list, 4,000 square foot of square footage, but it really isn't, because when you go inside, it's a little bit smaller because the walls have thickness. There's areas you cannot use, right? So usually about 10% less than what's written. So when they write 3,000 square foot, think the house is actually 2,700, 2,600. So that's what the realistic area is. And also what's missing? You look at the pictures. What is not being pictured? What is not pictured? There are areas, there's things that just show you exterior. It's like, then the interior is going to be terrible. That's why they're not showing it. So what's not shown? Why is it not shown? Usually, like sometimes they wouldn't take pictures of the mechanical areas. It's like, okay, fine. You know what? I kind of get why you don't want to show the mechanical areas. It's not something that's pretty to look at, right? But sometimes maybe there are problems in there. Ask yourself, what areas are missing in the pictures and why are they missing? The recommendation I would usually give is avoid pools if possible, and I've been given that recommendation by my agent as well. Since my first house, I've owned multiple houses and all of them without pools, and every time we're looking at houses, we say, okay, we're not going to get pools. The reason is it's just not worth it. As in, it costs so much money to maintain it, to run it, to keep up with it. It's just not worth it for me. And if you must have a pool, by all means, something you want to factor in. You want to factor in the cost. You want to factor in the heating costs. You want to factor in the maintenance costs, like filters, chemicals, liners, covers, and cleaning and things like that. And you also may have a hard time reselling your house because of the pool, because there are buyers out there who are avoiding pools. And generally, I would say if it's your first home, avoid it, because again, all of these maintenance costs, all of these things that you need to factor in. And also there are risks, right? There are risks of drownings. There may be animals that end up in your pool. There are other liabilities. Let's say your guests. You don't want to think about it, but these are the issues. So what I'm thinking is that for first-time home buyers, avoid pools if at all possible. But if you must have it, be aware of the problems that is. So more unique properties, things like heritage or historical homes, my recommendation is avoid for first-time buyers. I understand historical or heritage homes are beautiful. I've owned them. They're fantastic. They look absolutely incredible, and it's a conversation piece for sure. But they have their own set of issues. Things like permit problems, like if you're trying to do something outside, if you're trying to do the roof, all of that stuff, you need to let the city know. You need to tell them, hey, here's what I'm doing. Is it up to your standards? Because it's a historical home, you need to maintain it up to a certain standard. So these are all problems. And also resale. So whenever you're trying to sell a historical or heritage property, there are other problems that come with it. People are going to be a little bit more careful, and people may not willing to pay as much because of all of these restrictions. And indoor pools, avoid it. Just avoid it. Just avoid pools in general, especially indoor pools. There's just so much more problems to deal with. Or special features like elevators. These are just pains. You need to maintain them. It costs you money to maintain them, and also when you sell, elevators come with its own special permits for them, and home insurance is gonna need to know, and there are insurance companies that will not insure you if you have an elevator in your home. And again, just avoid these things for first-time home buyers. Bridges, yes, I've seen properties with bridges on them. There was one property I went to look at. They had a bridge built, and it has to be fire truck and ambulance rated, and it cost them $250,000 to build a bridge at the time. And then I don't know how much it's going to cost to maintain it and all of that stuff. It's just something to avoid. Be careful of. And super large windows, they can be very, very leaky, especially on an older home. If you have large skylights, large entrance door windows, large transom windows, they're beautiful. I love them. They're fantastic, but something to be aware of, because it's going to lose heat like crazy. Just be aware of them or avoid them as a first-time home buyer. And so this is the bridge I'm talking about. You see right here, it cost them $250,000 to build. You can pass through fire trucks and all that stuff. It's a really nicely built bridge, but it's something that I was so concerned about. It's like wondering what the maintenance cost is going to be like. I've never dealt with a property with a bridge on it. I'm not saying every property is going to be something like this, but there may be unique things about certain properties that you may want to pay attention to. Things like these ravine lots. This is a beautiful lot. It's got a river running under it. It is absolutely fantastic, serene, and it's also like when the trees fill out, you don't even see any of the neighbors. It's really great, but something to think about, like your privacy, your how much yard work do you have to do? What are some things you really have to deal with? Things like this sunken area here. Is it going to be a problem in the future? You may have to redo this asphalt at some point. How much is that going to cost? How big area of that is? And then also, like if you look at the driveway like this, all of the shoveling that you need to do here on the driveway just to make sure it's clear so you can get in and out. And if an emergency happens, can the fire trucks and ambulances get in and out? So these are all things you want to think about when you look at a property. And these are things that I picked up over the years, and I hope to show you all of these problems too. You can always come back to this video and look at things, or watch the video again to look at things and say, I forgot about this, let me look at this. Oh, I forgot about that, let me look at that. And there are things I probably missed too. So let me know if I miss anything, or things that are special to you, or some of the special cases that you've encountered that I did not mention here. All right, so I do want to show you one listing right here. So this property is listed for $2.8 million, but let's read the description right here. 5,205 square foot of finished living space. This is very misleading. What they've done here is they've included area in the basement. The house itself is about like 3,000-ish square foot. Personally, I hate this. All right, it's very, very misleading. It makes the house seem bigger than it is. But because you've looked at a lot of properties and you've looked at a lot of pictures, and you can look at this house and you say, you know what, this house does not look like a 5,000 square foot house, because it's not. Right? So I hate these misleading descriptions. So that's why I was saying you need to read these descriptions, read it over and over again, analyze what it says. Does it make sense? Does it seem right? Does it match what's in the pictures? Does it make sense to you? What have they done here to kind of upsell you, right? It's like a rare opportunity. Like, is it really? One of the best ravine lots in Thornley? Sure. Is it? Look at it. Look at the pictures. Look at the maps, right? Is it an actual ravine lot? Like, sometimes they may say, oh, you may get a little bit of access to it. Like, see here. Like, oh, it's pretty good, right? So it's a ravine lot, sure. But it's also right on the street, you see? So you see the street right here, right? So you got a street right here, and then you got a lot of turn here, right? Although it looks like it probably won't have as much traffic as, say, some of the major roads. It looks like just a 2-lane, but it's something to pay attention to. Sure, it's a ravine lot, you're right, but it's also right next to a street. That's something to be aware of. Yeah, so here, this one, again, this one just sold, but I wanted to show a little bit of a virtual tour. So you can click on a virtual tour in House Sigma. So you can click on that, and that'll pop up with a virtual tour they've built, and it's really nice. I think you can look at they call it the dollhouse. So it's nice. Just you can click around and walk around, and you see, oh, hey, here's the living room. And here's the office, really nice. I think it's great if you are working from home, right? So these are all things that you can look at in the virtual tour. And I think the pictures is nice, but this gives you a little bit more of a feel of how the house flows, how the house moves, and how far things are apart from each other, right? So this one you can look at, oh, okay, cool, there's a breakfast area here. And there's something over here. Oh, this is a laundry, that's cool. So you get a feel for the layout of the house. Right, this is formal dining over here. Okay, cool. So you can walk through the house virtually and get a feel of it, where things are laid out. Does it make sense to you? Does it work for you? Let's say, if you're looking at feng shui and all that good stuff, depending on the buyer, depending on the culture background you come from, there may be certain things that you look for that others don't want to have in their property. Things like this. In Chinese culture, having stairs facing directly at the exterior wall is like losing wealth. Most likely the Chinese buyers will not be as excited. They'll still pay for it, but But also looking at some of the other things, like this lot right here, it's an irregular shaped lot, but it's also backed right onto a ravine, which is very nice. Kind of looks like the other property we just looked at, but you can see here, we're right into a ravine. The neighbor on the other side is a little bit further away, but also we're not right next to the road. Like even a few houses in, any of the noise coming in from the road will be reduced greatly. Like look at this one here. This is a major road right here. So let me just draw here. So this is a major road right here. This is going to be very, very noisy. So all of these houses right here, is going to be quite noisy. But we're okay here. Like this property here is fine because we're in one street and two streets. And we're also a couple of houses down from the quote unquote major street right here. So we should be okay in terms of noise. But also be aware, because of some of the houses in the back here, if you have houses in the back, it blocks the noise coming in from this direction. But because we don't have any of that, you may hear a little bit more in the winter. In summertime, when the trees fill in, you don't need to worry about it. But in the wintertime, be aware of it. Right. So when we look at the description here, you can see there's a special feature for the basement. There's a walkout basement, which is very, very nice. So whenever you can get a walkout basement, it's always a plus. And then let's take a look at one more property before we sign off. So this property here, listed $1.25 million. You can see here we have a couple problems. We can see there's some water damage right here. Right, so there's some leakage going on here and there's some growth on it. So there may be some hidden damage right behind there. So you may want to be careful with that. And also like this stuff right here, these covering here, this is new. So you may want to look behind it to see how the supports are. Are they doing okay? Are they rusted away? And we can also see a lot of these cameras here. What that tells me is either the homeowners are very, very paranoid, or with the no smoking sign, this is a rental property. So something you want to be aware of is rental properties, because rental properties are generally not well taken care of, right? So when we look at the inside, it looks okay. Like there's no major damage to it. It looks like everything is as it should. Again, older property. You know, look at the cabinets here. These are really, really old, and these look like they're not really well painted either. So it looks like whoever it is, like the current owner or the previous owner or whoever, just decided to hastily paint this stuff on. They didn't bother sanding any of this stuff, you know. And this here, the tile here is really, really strange. Like this stuff doesn't even match, and this stuff doesn't even match. Like none of the tile seems to match. So that tells me these renovations are probably done piecemeal. What happens is that when renovations are done piecemeal, they're generally not of consistent quality. So some of the renovation may be done well, some of the renovations will not be done as well. And look at this right here. So this thing is not put in very well. Like this drywall is not even painted, and we got some holes on the ground and holes on the wall right here. So this is not a very well taken care of property. There's something missing here. You know, I don't know what is going on here. This may be a closet or some building things here that was taken away by the previous owner. It's a property that's a rental. It looks like, you know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done if you want to buy this for yourself. And the basement's all in shambles. It's nice though that you can see a lot of problems here. You can see some water leakage here. And also you can see, I don't know if these like patchwork or something. I don't know what's going on here. So most likely there was more water damage here. They're just trying to paint it off or clean it up a little bit. And you can see the walls here is not even properly painted. It looks like wallpaper here, like the red brick wallpaper. And this stuff is like, I don't know. Like a lot of the stuff just looks really, really strange. Like you got a wall outlet right here, right next to the stove, and this doesn't even look like it's GFCI, which it absolutely should be in the kitchen. Yeah, and you can see here they put on wallpaper here to cover up the actual masonry. So there may be some water damage right here. You can see there's a water leak right here. And it looks like at some point it's been flooded before, because you got a lot of yellowing here on the baseboard. So something to be aware of. Again, when you're looking at this stuff, you want to make sure you pay attention to all of the damages, all of the problem areas, right? Because when we're looking at properties, we're not here to just say, oh yeah, this looks great, this looks fantastic. No, we're here to pick out the problems, because we're going to be spending a lot of our money on property. Then we want to make sure we get a worthwhile investment. And look at this stuff here. There's no chance this is up to code. So, you know, something to be aware of. So you have a detached garage. You can look at this stuff. This is all open. Right, so this could potentially have critters and whatnot going inside. Not a fun experience there for sure. And look at the shingles here. It looks like the shingles has been fairly aged, you know, and the chimney has been repaired up top. But some of this old masonry right here, this is old masonry. So this, right, you can see the cracks right here in this area right there. So that's probably something we'll have to fix once we get the property. Yeah, ideally, like these downspouts will be extended a little bit further out so we don't drain directly onto the foundation. And even you can see here, we got some moss right here, some splashback here. And also it looks like there may have been at some point a flower planter here they've taken out, you know, so because you can see like the bricks here is a different shade than what's up here. So again, when we look at pictures, we try to pay as much attention as possible to what is wrong with it. And then when we do go see the property, we can look directly, we can focus in on the problem areas and see what's going on there and figure out if it's worth our money and worth our time. All right, I think that's it for today. I hope you learned something. I hope it helped you out a little bit. And then if you want to see more, if you have more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Or if there's anything I missed, feel free to leave them in the comments. And really want to make sure everybody gets as much information as we can when we go into buying a property. Because again, it's the biggest purchase you can make in your life. There's a lot of money going in there. So we want to make sure we make the best decision we can and get the best value for our money. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you learned something today. See you guys next time. Bye.